morning.
Good morning. We've talked the whole night through.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. It's great to stay up late. Good morning. Good morning.
Hello and welcome to the Pro Wrestling Personified Podcast. I'm your host, Louis Carlin, and we're part of the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network. And this is the RJ City Makes Coffee in His Underwear edition of the Pro Wrestling Personified Podcast. Good to be here this week once again to go over what went down on last Sunday at 9:30 when RJ City went ahead and made another cup of coffee in its underwear. So I'm here, episode 4. Good to be back. Glad you could join me. And again, we're with the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network, and the response has been phenomenal for this podcast. So I really appreciate it. Keep up the great response. You know, people are listening. As they should be, because this is a pretty decent podcast I'm doing here. It's for a pretty decent show, and I just want to thank, of course, the man RJ City for making that coffee in his underwear every Sunday at 9:30. It's become such an integral part of my Sundays, as I've mentioned many times. And this week there was no issue. There was no issues this week with getting to see RJ City make coffee in his underwear live. Well, there was a slight issue, but my wife actually, it was Saturday evening. And early Saturday evening, and my wife, who hasn't been too happy that I'm spending my Sunday mornings watching RJ City make coffee in his underwear. She hasn't been too happy, and she's kind of prevented me a few times. A couple of some shenanigans. She did some shenanigans, and she tried to prevent me from watching the show. Live, because I want to watch the show live, because if you don't watch the show live, then there's of course spoilers that I have to worry about. I got to stay off social media because all the spoilers are going to be posted, and if I don't watch it live, then I can't really ask him a question. That's one thing that I like to ask the questions, and I like RJ City when he answers them, because I like hearing my name on Facebook Live. So that's another reason why I like to watch it live. But early Saturday evening, my wife was like, "Are you going to watch RJ City make coffee in his underwear tomorrow?" And I was like, "You better damn believe I'm going to watch RJ City make coffee in his underwear tomorrow. Nothing can stop me." I said, "You tried to stop me a few times, but you were unsuccessful, of course. And I'm not gonna watch RJ City make. I'm not gonna let you stop me from watching RJ City make coffee in his underwear." And she's like, "All right, well, you know what?" She tells me that she decides that she wants to stay in a hotel for the next week, because she needs to reevaluate a few things. So that's cool. I mean, hey, you need some time to yourself. I understand. Sometimes I need an hour or 2 hours to myself. But if she wants a week to herself to reevaluate stuff, by all means, go ahead. She booked a hotel room, so she's staying in a hotel. And so the way I look at it is I have a hall pass now for the next week. So wife's gone for the next week, and I get to relive my my bachelor days when I was on my own, and I would go online, and I'd hope that somebody would be online that I could talk to, and someone anywhere in the world that maybe I could convince to be my girlfriend, at least for the evening. Try to convince people that I'm not strange, or I'm not weird. Just gets to relive the past when I used to do that, and anyway, but yeah, so I'll be by myself for the next week, reliving my bachelor days. Yeah. Okay, great. So and I remember I would go online, and I would look for people. I would like to talk about people that I admire. So I would go into and I remember when I was I would use AOL. I go into the AOL chat rooms. If anyone, any of you young bucks out there, young bucks, nice little reference there. Any of you youngsters out there, remember AOL Live? I used to go on there, and I used to look. There's a few people that I admired, and I would look for people to talk about. I joined a few chat rooms. I used to I used to be a member of the Arthur Fonzarelli chat room. There was JJ from Good Times. There was a chat room there, and of course Tootie from Facts of Life. There was a Tootie of Facts of Life chat room that I would go into all the time. And I would talk about, what I liked about Arthur Fonzarelli, who, by the way, that show never jumped the shark, okay? That show never jumped the shark, Happy Days. I don't care what anybody says. But, so that's what I like to do. So maybe I'll, while she's away and I got this 1 week hall pass, maybe I'll go, see if these, chat rooms, are still around. Maybe I'm still a member of the Fonzie chat room, of the Arthur Fonzarelli chat room, and JJ from Good Times, and then Tootie from Facts of Life. So I'll go ahead and do that. While my wife is reevaluating stuff. Anyway, but today, I got a phone call. I got a phone call on Sunday morning from my mom. My mom and dad live in New York. And my mom called up and she said, Louis, I just want to talk to you. Dad's not feeling well. He's not feeling well today, and he wants to know, he wants to talk to you. He hasn't talked to you in a while. He says he's really under the weather. He's lying in bed. He's got this massive headache, and he said he just wants to talk to you. Talking to you will make him feel better. You haven't spoke to him in a while. He kind of misses you, and I was touched. I was like, he's right. He's right. I haven't called in a while, and I should talk to my dad. But then I looked at the time. It was Sunday. It was 9:28 in the morning. I was like, Mom, I'll tell you what. I'll call back about 10 o'clock, 10:10, because I got something to do at 9:30 on Sunday mornings that I do every week. And she's like, oh, well, what is it that you do? And I'm like, well, it's okay, Mom. Let me take care of this. And I don't want to tell her what I'm doing, right? She's like, let me just take care of this stuff. She goes, well, your dad just wants to talk to you for a few minutes. Can you just put off what you're doing for a few minutes? And I'm like, well, no, I really can't, because, see, I need to be there at the beginning. Because if I'm not there at the beginning, then it's... Well, I want this specific person. And, of course, I didn't want to tell her what I'm doing. But she said, I want this specific person to... know that I'm there at exactly 9:30, and she's like, well, your dad could talk to you right now. You could really talk to your dad. He's really not feeling well, and it really would make him feel a whole lot better if you would just talk to him. I'm like, yeah, well, Mom, I looked at the time. It's 9:32. I'm like, Mom, I'm sorry, I gotta go. I'll call you back. Tell Dad I'll talk to him about 40 minutes, okay? And I hung up the phone, and I quickly got online and I turned on RJ City making coffee in his underwear. And and I started watching the show, and I got there a little late. I did say hello to RJ, and he did say hi back. He did mention my name this time, so I'm really appreciative of that. So thank you very much, RJ, for saying my name. And he plugged the podcast again, so I thank you for plugging the podcast, RJ. So this week, let's go into what went down this week. What went down? Not really much happening this week. It seemed like it was, well, first of all, Louis wasn't there. His assistant who runs the camera, Louis wasn't there. And it was apparent that he wasn't there because the camera shots and the camera angles weren't, they weren't as good as they usually are. So Lewis was definitely missed this week, and I just want to point out, if RJ is listening, if you need another Lewis to fill in, you could always ask me. I'd be happy to come down and take over the camera responsibilities from the other Lewis. So all you gotta do is give me a shout on Twitter or Facebook, and I'll be down there in two shakes of a lamb's tail. Little House on the Prairie reference there. Laura Ingalls Wilder. So anyway, we found out this week that it's a medium roast coffee from Lavazza. So it's Lavazza medium roast coffee that he's making. And he's wearing the Hugo Boss black underwear, which he was he looked pretty good in those underwear this week. The Hugo Boss black. He looked good in black. He was rocking it. He was rocking it. It was a little too tight. A little too tight. Bulge here, bulge there. A bulge here, a bulge there. Yeah, nothing wrong. If you got it, you got it, right? And I guess RJ's got it. So, he rocked. Yeah, he showed off the underwear. But then we found out that the coffee was already ground again. There was no bean. This is the second week in a row. There's no bean, and I'm starting to think: is RJ City getting lazy? What's going on? He's not grinding the beans, or maybe he's grinding them before the show begins to save some time, or because maybe they can't. Maybe the production costs are too high or something for grinding those beans. But the beans were already ground, so I don't know. I like to see the bean. I like to hear the bean grinding. So that's what I was hoping for. We didn't get it this week again, so I was a little disappointed at that. And he did mention that he did have a falling out with his assistant or the cameraman Lewis. So hopefully they can work that out. But again, I'm going to put it out there. If you need another Lewis, I'm more than willing to step in and take over the camera work. Hold on a second. My wife is calling me, but I'm going to put that on hold because I'm recording the podcast. Okay, and I'll leave that one alone. Okay, so we had the falling out with Lewis, as I mentioned, and then somebody made a comment. He said, "That's a French press. Do you want your heart beating out of your chest?" I don't know what that means. I mean, I use French press all the time, and my heart never beats out of my chest. My heart stays inside and beats like it normally beats. It never doesn't jump out of my chest. So I didn't understand that reference, and neither did RJ. I forgot his response. I didn't write it down. Maybe I should have, but he did respond. He was a little confused, and I'm confused. I didn't get that. My heart's not going to beat out of my chest because of a French press. But then again, I don't drink caffeinated coffee. I'm not supposed to, because we all know what happened to me last week. I fell out of my chair. I got dizzy. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out. That was a kind of a weird, silly comment there. And we had a viewer from South Korea. So there are people in South Korea watching RJ City, in Toronto, in Canada, if that's where in fact he was this week, but I'm pretty sure he was, making coffee in his underwear. So you gotta love 2018, right? You gotta love the year 2018, because if this was 1988, people from South Korea would never be able to see RJ City make coffee in his underwear. Well, neither would anybody else, because the internet didn't exist. But it's technology is something else. Something else. You got the French press, and you got the viewers in South Korea able to watch a person in Canada making coffee in his underwear, and I'm sure he's told all his friends, and now I bet they're going to have a little South Korean party every Sunday night at 9:30. They're all going to gather around. I'm sure it's going to become a countrywide phenomenon in South Korea. This Canadian making coffee in his underwear, 9:30 every Sunday. So job well done in getting that viewer in South Korea. RJ City. Now, if that viewer was actually in South Korea, I have no proof. I'm just going by what he'd said. So, but I'm going to believe him. Why would anybody want to lie about being a viewer in South Korea? I mean, why pick South Korea? I mean, if I was going to lie, I would say, yeah, I'm a viewer in Zimbabwe. That's what, just because I like how that sounds, Zimbabwe. So I would have said I'm a viewer from Zimbabwe. But anyway, somebody actually called the underwear boring as well. And let me tell you something. That underwear was not boring. As I said, he was rocking it. He was rocking that underwear. Like I said, bulge here, bulge there. Hey, bulges everywhere. It's how it was. It's how it is. That's how it is, right? And it wasn't boring at all. The underwear wasn't boring. They were very, very exciting underwear that RJ was wearing. Well, he was winning too. He's winning my affections for that, for rocking the underwear. So he was kind of winning there, so to speak. Then he revealed the cup this week. I always look forward to the cup reveal. Like it's a very integral part of the show. When we find out the cup he's going to use for this coffee. He had the Nickelodeon cup, he had the Twilight Zone cup, and this week he, kind of dropped the ball a little bit, and he brought out a regular brown cup. There's nothing fancy about it, just a plain brown cup. And I was very, very, very disappointed. I mean, like I said, you went from the Nickelodeon cup, which was very exciting, very, very exciting cup, to the Twilight Zone cup, which was kind of freaky exciting because it had the picture of the pig person on it. And then you go to this brown cup. It's kind of like it's almost like he was mailing it in this week. I don't know. I wasn't too happy at the brown cup reveal. So. Yeah, so I guess, you got Sammy Callahan going thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm giving that a thumbs down. There's no thumbs up for that, just thumbs down. So, thumbs down on the brown cup. I mean, if he doesn't want to use a Nickelodeon cup and he wants to, and he's looking for a new home for it, I'll gladly take the Nickelodeon cup. I like the Nickelodeon cup. I know. I think Ali used it 3 weeks ago, and he used it 2 weeks ago, and I would like to put my mouth on that Nickelodeon cup, and not any Nickelodeon. The one that's in his cupboard. I want to put my mouth on that one. I want to drink from that one, I should say, and he's gonna have a special guest next week. And he wouldn't say who it was. So one would believe that next week it's going to be the Easter Bunny. The Easter Bunny showing up is going to help RJ make coffee, but I'm saying it's not going to be the Easter Bunny. That's too easy. I'm going to say that the guest that he's going to have next week is either going to be Space Monkey. I'm going to say Space Monkey's going to come and dance around in his underwear. Or, let me think, who else could it be? Or I'm going to say it's going to be... Who else could it be? Lawrence Hilton Jacobs from Welcome Back, Kotter. He's Boom Boom Washington from Welcome Back, Kotter. So I'm going to say it's either going to be Space Monkey or Lawrence Hilton Jacobs from Welcome Back, Kotter fame, and he played Joe Jackson on the Jacksons miniseries as well. He was also in Cooley High. Which was a decent movie. So those are my two predictions. It's either going to be Space Monkey or Lawrence Hilton Jacobs from Welcome Back, the Jacksons miniseries and Cooley High fame. So that's my prediction for next week, and I look forward to watching and seeing. If I'm in fact correct on those predictions. And now, the kettle. I gotta ask, what happened to the gooseneck kettle? The gooseneck kettle has seemed to have disappeared. See, this is where I'm saying he might have mailing it in. That's why you're not seeing the gooseneck kettle anymore. You got a regular brown cup. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with the show. You had an exciting gooseneck kettle and you had exciting cups, but now you got the plain kettle and you got the plain regular brown cup. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. But then we got the 4 minutes. We got the 4 minutes, of course, and I always wondered what would happen if he put the coffee in for 5 minutes. I kind of questioned it, but I should have worded it a little better because he read it. He read the question. When I said it on Facebook Live, but I should have worded it a little better. I don't think he really understood. I think he kind of thought I meant what's going to happen in 5 minutes because I think he talked about the end of the world. But I meant what would happen if he left the timer on for 5 minutes instead of 4. So that's what the actual question I meant was. So I was always would wonder what would happen if it was 3 minutes. He left the timer on for 5 minutes. Would it be too strong? The coffee too loud? I don't know. But anyway, and how did he come up with 4 minutes? That's the thing. Why 4 minutes? Why not 4 minutes 20 seconds? So why 4 minutes? So I was always wondering about that. And somebody actually called him Big Mac. And RJ City actually didn't like it. He didn't like being called Big Mac. So word of advice, do not call RJ City Big Mac. I won't do it ever. But don't call him Big Mac. He doesn't seem to like it. And somebody wants to know what was in his freezer, and we got to find out what was in his freezer. Now, this was exciting. This was an exciting moment on the show because he never went to his freezer before, and I'm glad that question was asked. Because I was curious. I wanted to know what was in his freezer, and he had bread. A berry blend, and he had unmarked sausages. And that was it. He had three items in his freezer: bread, berry blend, and unmarked sausages. Maybe there was more, but maybe he didn't want to reveal what else was in his freezer. But that was an exciting moment. I thoroughly enjoyed that moment, and that gets a thumbs up. So Sammy Callahan, the thumbs up, thumbs down, it gets a thumbs up. We got to see what was in his freezer, and that was a very good moment on the show. I really enjoyed that. RJ then, it was time for him to do the press. The 4 minutes was up. So he did the press. But again, he was without Lewis, his assistant, or cameraman, or whatever he calls him. And the camera work was just awful. It was just terrible. Lewis was definitely missed here. So I'm going to put out again one more time. If you need another Lewis to work the camera or whatever, hit me up. I'd be happy to come down. And that's the last I'm gonna make that offer. I said it, I think, 3 times already. You're probably getting tired of hearing me say it, so I won't. But the offer's out there. The offer's out there. Okay, and apparently Lanny Poffo was watching. Apparently Lanny Poffo was watching. I don't know if it was real or if it was a different name he was using, but apparently he called out Lanny Poffo, and Lanny Poffo was watching, and he actually called Lanny Poffo a genius. So unless you've been, for all you 80 wrestling fans and early 90 wrestling fans, you'll understand when he called Lanny Poffo a genius what that means, because Lanny Poffo was the genius and he read poems and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, interesting that Lanny Poffo had nothing better to do on his Sunday morning but to tune in and watch RJ City make coffee in his underwear. I'm sure he enjoyed it, and maybe one day we'll see him as a guest on the RJ City show. That would be tremendous. There was a comment, somebody said that RJ City had sexy armpits, which I don't think I kind of understood, because you don't really ever get to see his armpits. His arms are kind of close to his sides for most of the show, and when he does extend his arms, you really can't see the armpits. So I don't see how anybody would just jump the gun and suggest that he has sexy armpits. So I really didn't understand that remark by that person, and I'm not going to call that person out who said that. I should, because it's questionable, but I'm not going to call that person out. And then RJ finally he put in his ghee, his whatever, he mixed it up in the magic bullet, and he took a sip from the boring brown cup. And then it was time for him, and he mentioned this earlier on in the show, that he had a grievance and he was going to call somebody out, and he mentioned it on Facebook as well, that he was going to call somebody out on the show, and he called out David Arquette. Now, apparently David Arquette has been responding to his tweets, stepping all over his jokes, and stealing RJ City's spotlight. And RJ City made a comment that Dr. Tucker from the Muppets from Space, which David Arquette obviously played, was overacted, and it brought the movie down. Now, let me tell you something. This kind of pisses me off. David Arquette is doing absolutely nothing with his career right now. David Arquette, absolutely doing nothing. He was in the movie. I remember one movie he made, Eight-Legged Freaks. I didn't see the movie. You know why? Because David Arquette was in it. The Muppets from Space. I love the Muppets. Huge fan of the Muppets. I would have gone to see that movie, but you know why I didn't see it? Because David Arquette was in it. That's why. David Arquette, he sees the success, the massive success that RJ City is having right now with being a professional wrestling, and with this making coffee in his underwear, Facebook Live program that he does, and the Cynical Crafter, and all the things that he's doing. RJ City is most likely going to be the next host of Blue's Clues, and so David Arquette is getting a little jealous. He's getting a little jealous of RJ City. So he's taking his jealousy out on Twitter and on social media. So I gotta say, David Arquette, just stop. Just stop. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll get a script for Eight-Legged Freaks Part 2, or maybe they even made Part 2, but I don't know. But maybe why don't you sit around and wait for that script to come and stop picking on my man RJ City? I don't like it. You need to stop David Arquette. And you know something, David Arquette, you were the worst WCW champion of all time. The worst WCW champion of all time, next to Scott Steiner. But that's what I have to say. That's what I got to say about that. David Arquette, just stop it. Just stop it. All right, RJ City. When RJ City is at a level that you're not going to reach. So that's all I got to say about that, and I just wanted to point that out. I just want to, I normally don't take sides, but I'm taking sides here. I'm RJ City all the way, baby. I'm RJ City all the way. Anyway, so I just want to talk about that for a bit. So I know it. He was. It was a shoot. He said it was a shoot. It was a shoot. RJ City said it was a shoot, and he called out David Arquette. It was real. It was real. And if I have to get involved, then hey, I'll tell you what. Why don't we do this? Maybe on the show. And I actually, what? I'm so sorry. I should have said this earlier on, but I do have a surprise announcement. I want to make, and I'm going to make it at the end of the show. I should have mentioned it earlier. I do apologize. I should have mentioned it earlier, and it just hit me right now that I do have a surprise announcement to make. So I'm going to make this. You know what? I'm going to make the surprise announcement right now. So here's the surprise announcement. RJ City has agreed to actually come on an episode of RJ City Makes Coffee in His Underwear podcast and talk about RJ City making coffee in his underwear, the show that he does. Isn't that terrific? Isn't that wonderful? RJ City himself is going to come on this show and talk about him making coffee in his underwear, making underwear. Actually, that would be a pretty good idea. Maybe RJ City could forget the coffee and just make underwear. The Cynical Crafter. He can make underwear. But anyway, all kidding aside, very exciting. RJ City will be on a future episode of this podcast to talk about his show, RJ City Makes Coffee in His Underwear. So that's something to look forward to. And what I was actually alluding to a little earlier, and I was going to say is, if RJ City wants to come on the show, David Arquette, you want to come on the show? You guys want to debate a little bit? Hey, you're welcome as well. So why don't we get that trending on Twitter? Why don't we get that trending on Twitter? RJ City versus David Arquette in a debate on the Pro Wrestling Personified RJ City Makes Coffee in His Underwear podcast. Let's get it done. I'm sure I could get at least 10 to 15 more 10 to 15 more downloads if I could get that on this show. So let's do it. I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to seeing. I already got RJ City confirming that he'll be on to talk about the show, and maybe I can get David Arquette. So, if David Arquette, if you're listening, I'm sure you might be, because you ain't got nothing going on for the next couple of years. So I'm sure there could be a chance that he's listening. So if you're listening, you're welcome to come on the show anytime. And I think that's it. I think that was it for this week. Did I miss anything? Yeah, that was it. He he finally said goodbye. He plugged his special mystery guest again. I think it's going to be either Space Monkey or Lawrence Hilton Jacobs from Welcome Back, Kotter, Cooley High, and the Jacksons miniseries fame. That's my predictions for next week, and for the mystery guest for next week. And that's it for me. So until then, I just want to say thank you very much for listening. Take care. Bye-bye. And I'll be back for episode 5 for the Pro Wrestling Personified podcast, RJ City Makes Coffee in His Underwear edition podcast. I'll be back for episode 5. And again, very exciting news. RJ City will be on a future episode of this very podcast. So until then, I'm just going to say thank you very much again. Take care. Bye-bye. And until next week, stay safe, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.